Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Libby o tōku ingoa, and I am the Advisor, Governance, Policy and Programs. So this report seeks your approval for the next step in the process, which is for staff to engage with Aucklanders on Māori seats for Auckland Council. This decision is being asked of you today as there is a need to plan, prepare and carry out any agreed consultation between now and September towards informing a governing body decision in October 2023. So since 2017, governing body has agreed in principle support for the establishment of Māori wards through the parliamentary model following legislative change, which has since either been introduced or is currently in front of the House. Independent Māori Statutory Board has advocated for the Royal Commission model for Auckland Council since 2021, and through preliminary engagement with mana whenua and mātāwaka, Council received feedback that neither the parliamentary nor the Royal Commission model were suitable for Tamaki Makaurau. However, the Royal Commission model received slightly stronger support for its inclusion of an appointed mana whenua seat, a seat which would require legislative change to introduce. The feedback was, however, unanimous in agreeing that the status quo of no specific Māori representation is no longer an option. Also indicated in the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the Local Government Electoral Legislation Bill, which had its second reading on the 4th of April. The body of the report steps out the update in further detail, but as an overview of the key points. The bill will remove the set number of 20 councillors for Auckland Council, allowing Council to determine any number of councillors between 5 and 29, which is in line with all other councils in New Zealand. And by way of a supplementary order paper, the requirements that relate to Māori representation will not come into force until after the 2025 local elections. So although there is currently no statutory requirement for consultation or a decision on Māori representation in the lead up to the 2025 local elections, a deferral of this decision to 2026, when there will be a statutory requirement, would see the delay of any specific Māori seats for Auckland Council until the 2028 local elections. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very first, Madam. We've had a workshop on this already, and this is really just sending it out for consultation. I do have a couple of questions, Councillor Newman and Councillor Sayers.
Thank you for your report. With respect, you have stated in your report, seek feedback on options for the 2025 local elections as follows, and at D3, support for Royal Commission model. Then you got comment noting that this would require legislative change. So you are proposing that we would consult on an option that we can't deliver for the 2025 election, or can this be delivered for the 2025 election?
Through the Chair, it is possible. We can't guarantee whether legislative change would be enabled in time for the 2025 local elections, but there is a pathway where it could be possible.
Is there a bill in Parliament, a government bill at the moment, to enable the implementation of the Royal Commission model for which we're seeking to consult?
No.
No, what we are seeking permission to consult on is that we pursue legislative change. It would not be in time. Royal Commission model we would try for the 2025 elections. We can't say it wouldn't happen, but it is a difficult task to get it done in time for the 2025 elections. But we've been asked to keep the pedal to the metal by the IMSB, so we're not saying it can't be done. We would say it would be very difficult, but we would pursue it. We could make that clear in the consultation material, which you would have a sign-off on in June when we bring the paper to you.
I premise this question because I support a hybrid of the Royal Commission model, but D3, I'm very concerned about even less confidence from Aucklanders noting that we're consulting on an option that we can't implement. So, but you've included D3 in the office's report as a specific recommendation. The wording is wrong, so noting that this would require legislative change should be noting that this cannot be delivered for the 2025 election. Would it be more appropriate to just simply say that at D3? Or take it out and have D Roman numeral 1 and Roman numeral 2, and then E agree to consultation on an option which isn't available for the 2025 election, but which has been requested of us by the Independent Māori Statutory Board. That is support for a Royal Commission model or any other model of Māori representation, noting that this would require legislative change at some point.
I could add the words "at some point" if that would make it better for you. But your point is not in time for the 2025 elections. What I'm saying is that we would pursue it, hopefully in time for, but could not guarantee it.
D is about the option for the 2025 local government election. D3 cannot be delivered for the 2025 election. I would be happy to have a conversation about the Royal Commission model, which I support a hybrid of, but that is not a point for, it's not a consultative point for the election itself.
Through your worship, to some extent, whether it's achievable for 2025 or not, depends on what we're looking for. So if we go for elected Māori representatives through the Māori ward provision that's already there, and all that we're seeking legislative change for is one or maybe two appointed mana whenua seats, that doesn't interfere with the election process, and that the time frame for the legislation could be right through until the 2025 elections, and it doesn't have to be in place for when we start the election.
Yeah, Warwick, I understand that. I agree with you. But the point being that D is an option for the 2025 local government election. D2 is an option. D3 is not an option. But D3 is being included in there. What happens if Aucklanders support D3 and we go back, well, thank you for your support for D3, but we can't do it.
Councillor, if you'd like to, you read something out, if you could give it to us and consider, I would be happy to look at it as we are discussing it and could amend it, because I take your point. I understand what you're saying, that it looks confusing, that we are potentially consulting on something that we can't deliver potentially by 2025. Have you got some additional wording happy to consider? Or I could go away and do it now, but...
Well, I mean, I'll write something up if others have questions. Your worship, I'll do that now.
Councillor Sayers.
Well, that was very interesting, because Councillor Newman was brought up with exactly the same concern as that I had. So I noticed it's been moved and seconded, so it'd either have to be by way of an amendment, I think, now, Chair, or agreement from the mover and seconder. But I had the identical concerns there, so we might get somewhere there. My other question was around the budget. I think in the report it was talking about $100,000 for the consultation process. I don't want to say it sounded a bit light to me, but I just would like to understand how that money might be spent, and how you get how you're going to spend that money to get a representative input from Aucklanders. So how are we going to consult, and how do we target that consultation for that amount of money? Yeah.
Through the Chair, much the same way we do through the LTP, and it's the annual budget, and it's the annual budget team that helped us put that budget together. So its consultation requires all of Auckland, and also Māori, particularly because this particularly affects them. So we would do that in much the same way, and they helped us draft that budget. But it is just indicative. I'd be coming back to you with a much sharper analysis in due course.
If I may, Chair, just thank you for that, Rose. So did you mention that in June that we'll actually see that again, so the papers and the consultation documents will come back to us to approve? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philippine, are you there?
Been here all day, Your Worship, except for the morning. So just want to acknowledge Rose, Libby and Warwick. My partai is in regards to 12 on the agenda. Now, the note in regards to the Minister of Local Government and the commencement of the requirement relating to Māori representation, can I confirm that that only relates to the representation but not the change of or the ability for Auckland Council, the governing body, to change the numbers? Can I confirm that that is still on track to be passed before the election?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And also just the last one, Your Worship, and that is to Councillor Newman. Obviously, if way of addition, if what you're working on still has the same effect of going out for consultation, I personally would have no qualms in having that as an addition. And obviously, I'll seek the support of Councillor Leone as well. But I look forward to any changes, Councillor Newman. Kia ora, Your Worship, and I reserve my right to speak. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Filipaina. Councillor Ferry.
Thanks. My question is to the point that we seem to be a bit exercised about. Noting that this is going to be consultation, is that something we can put in the consultation document, that this may not be able to be done in time for 2025? And so people know when they're giving us their feedback, they can take that into account? Because that seems to me a way to resolve this problem.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm also hearing advice from staff that says maybe we could do it by 2025, but understandably there's some scepticism around the table of how practical that is, so maybe that resolves the issue. Just make sure we make it really clear in the consultation document.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Foley, please.
Kia ora, thank you. Just following on from what's been said about D, I wonder if we could clear that up even more. And I know that you're going to come back to us and show us the document before it goes out, but I do think you need to have that option, first the option of whether or not Aucklanders want Māori seats, because you've got that as option one, support the status quo, no Māori seats, and then the second question would be support Māori seats for Auckland Council, I would think. And then the issue about the representation can be separate. So if Māori seats are to be included for Auckland Council, what representation model do you support? And then A, parliamentary model, B, Royal Commission model, C, other. That might be a much easier way to do it.
Thank you for that. That's really helpful. We have been really tossing up about exactly how to word it without confusing Aucklanders, but that's one option we could look at. So we're just trying to make the options clear and simple, and that's our end goal, because this is an issue that people get very confused about. So making it simple is our main priority.
I think though, for clarity, the first question should be about, do you support Māori seats or not? So having the option of no and yes, and then after that, what's the representation model that you support? I think that's clearer than what you've got here.
Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Hope that clears it up. Councillor Turner.
Sorry, well, I'm confused already because I understand that the Independent Statutory Board is not in this discussion because that's a statutory board, correct?
The name says it all. It's independent and it's a statutory board.
Okay, so you just said, if I heard you correctly, when we were talking about some of the seats and we said, can this be achieved? You said that depends if they're appointed seats or not. So are we talking about more seats for Maori representation which are appointed and not voted for? There's a big difference there.
This with reference to the Royal Commission model.
Okay.
So the Royal Commission model had 2 elected seats and 1 appointed by mana whenua.
Okay, so but those 3 seats are separate to the statutory board, yeah? So I think the one important thing that Aucklanders will struggle with is the understanding of Maori representation compared to Maori seats. Because, you know, I'm supportive of some of this, but I'm not supportive of, you know, having to go to iwi. We have to do that because, and then we've got a statutory board, and then we have some ward seats. So I think it's got to be clear. I'm supportive of Maori representation on however the public decide it should be and Maori decide it should be, but they've got to understand that there is already representation. So, you know, when it says there, support status quo for no Maori seats, you know, that's not really true because there is Maori representation already.
The Māori seats we're discussing are elected Māori seats. So what the Royal Commission had envisaged, and this is why we put this in the paper, because there was a lot of talk at our workshop about Māori seats versus or instead of the IMSB. So what I intend to do with the consultation document is traverse our governance model, which includes the IMSB, who have a role to play in Auckland's governance, which is around the auditing, the keeping us honest, accountable. They are there with regard to seats on committees that manage natural resources. That was the intention of the cabinet paper that I put in there. The intention was for them to participate in that way, as well as Māori seats, from what we can read from those cabinet papers. I think the material that we're going to bring to you necessarily includes a discussion on the IMSB. People need to understand that is our governance model. But they are independent and they are a statutory body. So to seek to change that would require legislative change.
No, thank you. I'm not trying to seek to change anything. I'm just trying to make sure that when we go to consultation, it's as clear and simple as possible to the people like me who struggle to understand.
Kia ora.
Right, I will help Councillor Turner if that's possible, Your Worship, because I think he's right. I just think, regardless of what all these recommendations say, can you ensure that when this consultation document goes out, that you talk about the IMSB, what it is, and how it is different to what you're asking Aucklanders? All right? Did that help you, Councillor? Yes. Thank you.
Definitely our intention through the chair, and I know this is a difficult issue. We'll try and keep it as simple as we can, but I understand the point that you're making. Thank you.
I think what's behind that is that when we had the last vote, there was a strong vote for Maori representation or IMSB, and there was the IMSB one, IMSB plus Maori representation, and I've got no view on any of this, but I just wanted to make sure that the people felt that they had their options considered, because there is a question of whether it's in addition or an alternative. I don't think this quite says that, but then again, you might be able to get that somehow or other out. But if it comes, you're going to get a lot of answers that way anyhow, so we need to know, does this ask the question that allows for some of the answers which we know are coming? I don't know the answer to that, and I have almost no personal interest in this, so either way, so I'm very neutral. Whatever comes out is fine with me. Councillor Lee, you can clarify this, I'm sure.
I'll reserve my comments. My question did relate to the role of the IMSB and why it doesn't appear in the options, because the IMSB is unique to Auckland, part of the Super City reform. So it's been more or less aired, so I will reserve further comments till later. Thank you.
That seems to be the questions. Now I've got a proposer and a seconder. It's slightly different from what the original one was. It's gone round in several circles. Is that what you're prepared to propose? That proposer and seconder apparently are happy, are they? We've heard back that they're happy.
What's on the screen.
Okay, they're happy with what schemes. I'll now take comments. Councillor Lee can carry on commenting, and I think Councillor Newman, you wish to comment as well, is that correct? Councillor Lee, that's you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think I'm the only person in the room that served on a council with Maori electorates, Northern Maori and Western Maori, and that was in the old Auckland Regional Council, which was in effect the ARA. So I've worked with colleagues who were elected on Maori seats, and in my opinion, it worked very well. It's part of our democratic convention, our style of Westminster democracy. The people who represented those electorates were represented on a one-person, one-vote basis. That was the position the Auckland Regional Council took to the Royal Commission, and it was more or less accepted with the compromise of adding in a mana whenua seat as opposed to an electorate. And that was at the behest of an organisation set up in Auckland at the time called the Mana Whenua Forum, and many of the rangatira in that Mana Whenua Forum ended up on the Independent Maori Statutory Board, and it was their strong preference, given those good people represented Mana Whenua groups, not all from Auckland, of course, which is a subject of ongoing controversy in Māoridom. They wanted a mana whenua approach rather than a one-person, one-vote citizen elected approach. And so the Independent Maori Statutory Board was their preference rather than elected seats. But one of the ironies in the report is that the Royal Commission model is in there because that's the preference of the Independent Maori Statutory Board, and that's fine. And so the situation has gone from an IMSB instead of elected seats to an IMSB plus elected seats. And I think whatever the merits of that, it's up to people to decide. However, I think the people of Auckland should be told, it should be made quite clear what the situation is, that we do have Maori seats on the Auckland Council. They're not on the governing body, they're on all the committees, the committees of the whole, the consultation panels, the special committees, the selection panels. Indeed, some committees have 2 seats, they're not elected. They had obviously a rather complex electoral college, which from time to time ends up in court. However, I think that when it comes to consulting on this topic, the people of Auckland should be made quite clear that there is a very strong Maori voice around the table of most of our meetings, and in on some major issues, that presence, that voice has been a determining one, decisive one on a number of decisions. So all I'm asking for here, without predetermining anything, is that the council needs to be completely open about what the situation is here in Auckland, and rather than giving the appearance, and there is some comment there, we may have a reputational problem if we don't have Maori seats. We do have Maori seats, we don't have Maori electorates, but that was a choice of mana whenua at the time, and I was there at the time with the minister at the time, and speaking to those forums and hearing their feedback. Thank you.
Councillor Newman, Councillor Leone, and then Councillor Filipaina wants to close.
Well, very briefly, I've sought the deletion of D3 and the inclusion of new E, because it's important that when we consult with Aucklanders, we are providing a factual basis for what we're consulting on, and that is that what was D3, which I seek to I seek to strike out is not deliverable. The second thing that I would say is that the consultation is going to have to be pretty thorough. We're not having a referendum, which is people will have their own views about that. This is quite a big constitutional change, I suppose. And to not have a referendum, okay, but unless there is quite a degree of energy put into consulting widely with Aucklanders, it will really compromise I think the licence and that we would need to move to this new option, if indeed we were to support the parliamentary model. So I shall be interested when the officers come back with their subsequent advice as to what the consultation material will provide for and how that engagement will take place. And I also note, Your Worship, that this is going, we're kicking this consultation into the public domain. We have to do it, but the timing isn't great because I actually think this is the sort of thing that will become quite hot, and it will be timed just around the general election. That's awkward. So anyway, if people are of a mind to support E, and I think they are, that's good. I couldn't support D3 as was proposed, so thank you to the mover and seconder for accepting this amendment into the substantive. And I think Councillor Leone's next.
Thank you. Karen Leone, please.
Kia ora. Look, I just wanted to say that I agree with a lot of the comments that have been made, but I think it's also important that when we are going out to consultation, that we are able to draw on some models that are used across the country where there are already mana whenua forums as well as Māori wards. So I appreciate what Councillor Lee has brought up around the history, and it's important to reflect on that. But I also believe that we've moved with the times now. If they were only given an option of either independent Māori statutory board or Māori seats, of course I would prioritise mana whenua to take that space. But now that we have an option for both, as the biggest city in the country and the biggest Māori population in the world in our city, we should really be leading the way. And if we're not leading the way, we should definitely be on our way there. So it's great to see that this is going out to consultation, and look forward to hearing from our communities. I also think this is good timing, given that we're hopefully going to get through all the budget feedback and then move on to this. We need to get on with it quickly. Kia ora.
Else, otherwise I'm going to get Councillor Alf to fill this off. Finish off, please, Alf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanted to acknowledge the staff again, and being one of a few councillors around the table, Your Worship, having been at the beginning of the kōrero to this, and even in 2017, 2015, we all decided that this was not going to be an either or in regards to the Independent Māori Statutory Board, because they are now encased in statute and it needs to be a statutory change if that was the case. But this is going out for consultation, as the speakers have said, and I just look forward to the consultation. But just wanted to acknowledge also the Minister for Tamaki Makaurau, the Honourable Michael Woods, because I spoke to him this morning and tried to get hold of the Honourable Minister for Local Government, but what was passed on by the Honourable Minister Wood was the fact that the ability for the governing body numbers to change will definitely happen before the election, and that was the obstacle stopping Auckland anyway, and the governing body are making the decision around Māori awards. So look forward to the feedback, Your Worship and governing body, and just want to acknowledge our staff again. Kia ora. Thank you.
Thank you, Alf. I'd like to put the motion now. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary? Carried. Thank you very much. We're going to move to